Okay, members, have any of you got a declaration of interest? Councillor Hogan.
Just to say, Chair, that I am not only the district councillor for the ward in which item 5 appears, I'm also a Soham town councillor as well, but I can assure you that I restrained from any comments which may indicate a view for or against the application, and I am not part of the Soham Town Council Planning Committee either, so therefore have not been involved in any review at a town council level. So I declare that, so for transparency, but I believe that I don't have any interest which is prejudicial to participating fully.
Thank you. We'll note that, and if you feel that you're changing your mind during the course of a discussion or before the discussion, please tell us, but I'm assuming you'll take part in the debate and vote. Councillor Goldsack.
Yeah, on the same veins as Councillor Horgan has declared, I would declare that I am the local member for one of the 2 local members for the District Council for Soham North, in which area number 5 resides. I'm also the County Councillor for Soham North and Isleham, but like Councillor Horgan, I come to this with an open mind. Thank you.
Thank you. I think, okay, away we go.
I also like to declare that I'm a member for Ely North, but I have no interest in the agenda item 6.
Okay, that's absolutely fine. Thank you. I think we've covered all the declarations of interest, and we now go on to item number 3, which is the minutes. I assume members have read the minutes, and they're the minutes of course, of the 5th of November. Is there any reason why I shouldn't sign them as being a true record after this meeting is finished? No, in which case I will sign them as genuine. The item number 4, Chair's announcements. We're sadly losing Selina Windsor this week. I think it's something to do with East Cams officers have a very high reputation and then get sought by other authorities. So it's sad that we're losing Selina, but it's inevitable if we produce such sought-after officers. Good luck, though. I think that's all the announcements we have. So we now move... Oh, I haven't mentioned, if you do have mobile phones, will you please turn them off or turn them to quiet? And any discussions, if you are asked questions by members, please don't consider it as another 5 minutes you've got to make your case. If there are questions, they should be answered as simply and as quickly as possible. Thank you. So we now move on to item number 5, and we'll start off with the officer's report.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. Today I'm presenting an outline application for land at 25 Mearside. The outline consent for a residential mixed-use development of up to 99 homes, 450 square metres of Class E commercial space, new pedestrian and cycle links, a biodiversity-led wetland corridor, a new amenity and play space. All matters are reserved except for access. The site is approximately 7.8 acres and currently contains 2 industrial buildings with the remainder vacant land. It sits among mixed surrounding uses, including about 1.5 and 2-storey homes, a nearby care home and nursery, and the Viva Theatre is located just beyond Spencer Drove. The land is part of the SOH2 policy allocation, which supports a housing-led mixed-use scheme of around 90 homes, employment space, and station-related development. The station element has already been delivered, and only a small section in the northwest sits outside the allocation boundary. There are several site constraints, including its irregular shape. Southern part is part of the Soham Conservation Area, a gas main with a 3-metre easement, an existing drain running east and west, and the railway line to the west. Some site photos of the site and surroundings, which you would have seen earlier today. So I'll just give you some background on the site. Permission was granted in 2019 for 31 homes using the same access point as proposed today. In 2020, an application for 91 homes and commercial space was refused due to issues including affordable housing shortfalls, design, impacts on amenity, open space, and lack of legal agreement. The application today is not a detailed application, it's outline only, with layout, scale, appearance, and landscaping to come forward at reserved matters. The proposal includes up to 99 homes with 20% affordable housing following viability assessment, 450 square metres of commercial space, a key pedestrian and cycle route linking Station Road to Spencer Drove, a pedestrian access from 3 directions with all vehicular access via Mearside. A single parameter plan sets the framework for future detailed design. The key considerations to cover are the principle of development, housing mix, affordable housing, design and character, amenity, highways, biodiversity and trees, flood risk, and infrastructure and Section 106 matters. The principle of development, the site lies within the development envelope and within an approved allocation, and therefore accords with the locational strategy for the district. In broad terms, the proposal aligns with policy SOH2, but points 2 and 7 on the table are not applicable as they were delivered via the SOAM station approval. All other points will be discussed within the subsequent considerations. Some matters will naturally be refined at reserved matter stage, but the principle of a residential-led mixed-use development is acceptable. The parameter plan enables a varied mix of 1 to 3 bedroom homes consistent with SOAM's needs, and the applicant proposes 20% affordable housing with a housing mix weighted towards family homes and compliant tenure mix of 65% social rent and 35% intermediate. Although below the 30% policy target, it is above the level evidenced by the viability review. Early and late stage review mechanisms will ensure that any future uplift in viability contributes to additional affordable housing. This will be secured by way of Section 106 alongside a local connection cascade mechanism. Detailed design will come later, but the submitted parameter plan shows the site can accommodate the development in line with the allocation. Taller buildings up to 3.5 stories are set nearer the railway line. Heights step down towards Mearside and sensitive neighbours. Employment uses are directed towards the station approach. The layout allows for open space, landscaping, and an attractive setting and frontage near the station. A full townscape assessment will follow at reserved matter stage. In terms of residential amenity, the principle in terms of the height and land use strategy respects neighbouring properties. All future dwellings will meet the national space standards, provide adequate private and communal amenity space, and include mitigation for railway noise. At this stage, it is considered the development could be accommodated without compromising existing and future occupiers' amenity. The only detailed part of the application is access. The only vehicular access is from Mearside, and the local highways authority accept this arrangement, noting the acceptability of visibility displays, access for two-way traffic, as well as pedestrian footways. Local highways officers agree that access from Mearside is safe and workable. No off-site highway upgrades are required to mitigate traffic impact, as the County Council considered the level of traffic generation will have no material impact. However, improvements to pedestrian crossing points which link the site to the town centre will be secured by legal agreement. New cycle and pedestrian links across the site to Spencer Drove are included, avoiding the gas main and culvert and supporting sustainable movement around SOAM. Subject to conditions, there are no objections from the Council's ecologist and tree officer. The scheme will deliver at least 10% on-site biodiversity net gain, plus an additional 10% through off-site units to meet the 20% requirement of the neighbourhood plan. This is acceptable in principle, and contributions towards the SOAM Commons will also mitigate recreational pressure on local wildlife sites. In terms of drainage, the application site is located predominantly within Flood Zones 1, with a small isolated area in Flood Zone 3, which has been shown as undeveloped landscape or open space areas. The Environment Agency accept this and the findings of the flood risk assessment and do not consider the development to give rise to main river fluvial flooding. The LLFA raised no objection in principle, as surface water from the proposed development can be managed through the use of permeable paving and can be discharged through the renovation of the existing ditch network at the Greenfield equivalent rate. It is acknowledged that concerns have been raised with regards to flood risk and drainage matters. However, as the application is only in outline, the EA and LLFA have recommended updated information at reserve matters once the layout and design has been finalised. The southern part of the site lies within the conservation area, but redevelopment of this previously industrial land is unlikely to be visually harmful given its siting within the established development area and offers potential enhancement. There are no conservation objections. County Archaeology note a high archaeological potential and request a standard investigation condition. Historic England have also requested a safeguard condition, but in principle raise no objection. The development will contribute to a range of local needs, including 20% affordable housing, education and lifelong learning, ecological mitigation, including for Soham Commons, local ambulance service, highway improvements and sill contribution. A condition has also been added since the report was published to ensure high-speed broadband across the site. In summary, the proposal will deliver a high-quality mixed-use scheme on an allocated brownfield site within the development envelope. It would provide affordable housing with mechanisms to secure more if viability improves. It would offer significant infrastructure, social and environmental benefits, and sets robust parameters to secure housing, employment space, open space and sustainable movement routes. Officers therefore recommend approval subject to conditions and completion of the Section 106 agreement. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, very comprehensive. We've now got two objectives, Gillian Miller and then Donna Martin. I don't know if you're coming as a pair, but you've got 5 minutes between you. There'll be an amber light come on at 4 minutes and a red light at 5, and I would ask you to respect that 5 minutes as best you can. You'll need to turn the microphones on, which in front of you, and a light will come on when you're... That's it, okay, and away you go when you're ready.
Plans in June 2020 specify building directly behind 15 and 15A Mearside and also behind the Willows. I understand the reasons for not building behind the nursery school. On the most recent plans, mine and my neighbours' properties, 15 and 15A, will be the only homes directly overlooked, blocking both the light and our privacy, and also reducing the values of the properties. I suggest that the proposed homes 11 and 12 should not be built, but replaced by planting new trees, helping to make up for the mature trees which will have to be felled, and I estimate that to be about 10. Planning permission for 90 homes was refused in June 2024 as ill thought out. How can you now justify building an additional 9 homes?
The land in question provides the sole natural drainage basin to land west of Soham High Street. Any development on this site will cause flooding to existing older properties at 67, 69, 71, 73 and 75 Mill Corner, significantly to numbers 73 and 75, which have experienced 6 major house floods in 30 years. I speak for all residents at Mill Corner and Mearside who not only oppose development on the site in question, but are afraid of it. Number 73 Mill Corner has flooded so many times the owner can no longer afford the excess on her insurance when such events occur. The open drainage ditch on my property collects runoff groundwater from the bottom of Clay Street and all buildings at this part of Mill Corner adjacent to and to the east of Soham Station. At times of heavy rainfall, the ditch does not have the capacity to hold the amount of water discharged into it, often causing minor flooding. This ditch flows into an underground pipe which directly connects to the land under consideration. Due to persistent flooding from 1995 and the discovery that Soham Lode discharges into the same land when the river oozes in flood and cannot take water from Soham Lode, in 1997 East Cambridgeshire District Council dug a relief channel spanning the western boundary of the land under consideration. In 2020-21, the following applicants' attempts to clear the site by use of machinery, my ditch was in flood to the extent that water pressure was so great it began to undermine my outbuildings. It took 2 years for the County Council Flood and Water team to investigate the matter. When they eventually sent a tanker, the operator stated that they disposed of 8,000 gallons of water, but the ditch was refilling from the pipe that runs from the site this applicant is proposing to develop. When the matter was finally dealt with, the landowner denying any responsibility for soil blocking the channel, we were told we had been holding an estimated 500,000 tonnes of water. This developer, which some of you will wish to support, intends to build people's homes on this site. The developer states that as part of the development, they wish to include a wetland wildlife habitat. This is a wetland wildlife habitat. The area in question is low-lying in the region of 20 feet below sea level. It's crisscrossed with ditches that provide drainage to homes at Mearside. County Council Highways, who are regularly in attendance to flood events at Mearside, state nobody really knows how it works. When Soham Lode cannot discharge into the River Ouse, the Environment Agency opens the sluice and allows the water to flood into the land this developer wants to build homes on, land where the ditches will already be full of water. In 2022, it was confirmed to me by the Environment Agency that they do not intend to change this arrangement. I have seen the proposed development site under 2 metres of water. Attenuation tanks beneath Soham Station, constructed deliberately for the purpose of draining the land under discussion, have proven that they cannot cope during times of heavy rainfall. This proposal cannot be considered in isolation due to the sensitive nature of the drainage system and how it affects existing properties and homes in the immediate surrounding area. Flooding here is not a 1 in 100-year event. The purpose of outline planning is to consider the suitability of a site, a main consideration being sustainability and future-proofing against global warming and higher risk of flood events. At a public meeting, the development company, when questioned, could not say how water courses would be maintained. Neither could they say how they would dispose of runoff without adding to an already existing issue. The suggestion of underground attenuation tanks does not work in clay and would cause so much groundwater displacement it would increase the seriousness of existing issues. To date, despite many requests, I have not been able to obtain full drainage plans for this site. Neither have I been able to obtain a map of drainage post-Soham Station development. This week, after submitting an FOI to ECDC, I was not told that no update to drainage plans exist. Surely it is folly to proceed in this decision without full knowledge of how millions of gallons of groundwater discharged from the hard-standing cars and roofs this development would create would be disposed of without causing flooding to many existing homes. I put it to you that any development at this site is unsustainable and that it should exist in its natural
We have now gone
I've finished.
half a minute beyond the time limit, and the red light did come on.
I've finished, sir.
Thank
I
you.
apologise.
Will you just sit there for a minute in case members have any questions? Pardon? Yes, yes.
Thank you. The first lady to speak, apologies, I didn't catch your name, but you mentioned about the proposed build form that would be directly behind 15 and 15A.
Yeah.
I don't believe I've seen that build form because this is for outline planning, this is not for detailed planning. So anything you've seen is indicative, it's not, it's for illustration purposes. I believe that's the case. I don't think we've got any detailed plans of what houses were there. I fully respect what you're saying, that this is the 4th iteration of planning on this piece of land, and therefore it may have been in a previous thing. But unless I'm mistaken, I don't believe we've got a layout design to debate on here. We're only debating on the viability of the land, which brings us very much to Ms Martin's words around what we're talking about.
Well, the plan that I've got, which I got a copy from you, shows directly numbers 11 and 12 being built directly behind me, and our gardens are very small.
Can I say this is you've had your say, and the members are asking you questions, and so it's not a matter. It's a matter of just giving a straight answer. If you remember, my introduction said that. So if you'd just like to clarify it, Mr. Goldsack.
It's only theory.
Oh, right, oh, right.
Sorry, I'll ask you the question so that you can give me a straight answer, and probably my question was the problem. So
No, I probably didn't understand.
Forgive me for that. Right. There are no current plans visible for the design and the build of buildings to show your side of the argument. So I'm afraid, as far as I'm concerned, I will have to regretfully ignore that, because at the moment we're only talking about outline plans. We've not seen any detail of what house is going to go where and when. So this copy of the plan I've no idea. I've no idea of the copy of the plan that you've got.
Oh, right.
Sorry,
Well,
okay. Well, a follow-up question then. Could you tell us where you got? You saying you got that from? You actually said from you, which I assume you mean the council.
there it is.
Just for clarity, Councillor Goldsack, there was an indicative layout plan which came in with the application initially. It's not been included as a plan.
So that's the theory.
So what members are considering today is the parameter plan, which is within the pack and was on the screen. The layout plan is not being considered as part of the approved documents
So
today.
if I may conclude, if I may chair through you, so actually your point remains valid and on the table, but not for today's debate. It will be for when the outline plan and permission comes forward for full consent.
So this could be not built. These two could not be built then. Is that what you're
Quite
saying?
possibly. That is an indicative plan to give an idea of what it could look like. It's not what it
right.
will look like, it's what it could look like.
Oh, right. I understand. Yes, no, I understand
Okay,
now.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, we've got over it. Councillor Colbert, I believe you are.
Coming on. Oh, sorry. Sorry, the second lady, you've obviously carried out some levels of research. Have you actually been in touch with the Environment Agency? Have you got any information from them directly?
I used to be in touch with the Environment Agency on a regular basis. In fact, it was the Environment Agency that put pressure on East Cambridgeshire District Council. I'm assuming that most of you went out to a site visit this morning. The big drainage ditch that runs alongside the development site, that's the ditch that East Cambs District Council put in 1997 to stop the backflow into the ditch at my property. So I basically, if you look at the map where you see the roundabout for the station, if you follow that to the left, I am off the map, but I border the station car park. The ditch actually would be vertically on your map and connects and runs straight across into that big drainage ditch. So I'm completely connected to the site in question, but we are 15 feet below sea level at our lowest point, and we collect water from Clay Street, all the runoff as a basin, so it basically collects where we are.
I see, I think. So you're off the site.
You can't see us on the map, but we're connected.
But you're saying the site feeds into the drainage ditch. Okay, thank you.
And we drain directly into the site.
Have we any more questions for the objectors? No? Okay, thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you.
You can resume your seats now. We'll now move on to Richard Conroy, a consultant, and Neil Pistol, the client. And the same rules apply to you. You've got 5 minutes. I imagine you're familiar with the process here. And start at your convenience, and you've got 5 minutes between you.
Thank you, Chair and committee members. My name is Richard Conroy from Total Planning. I'd first like to thank the case officer. I think she presented the scheme incredibly well, and the comprehensive report that went alongside this to explain that this is an outline application. The detail hasn't come before members yet, and it will come at reserved matter stage. So this application, like I said, it's an outline stage. The key things being considered is the principle of development and access. With regards to access, I think it's important to bear in mind that there's a previous consent as well for this site that it was referred to earlier for 31 houses. So the access, the vehicular access is very, very similar to that. So in principle, the council have accepted the vehicular access before. Obviously, this development could bring forward a larger number of dwellings. So we've had to consider the transport impacts of a larger number of dwellings. Very recently, we've undertaken new traffic surveys in local junctions. We've done those in September. We've provided an updated transport statement to the officers that's been reviewed by Cambridgeshire County Highways team, who find that there's no adverse impact in terms of the local highway network. So in coming back to the principle, the site is allocated, like mentioned by the case officer. It's very consistent with the aspirations that the council set out in their local plan. It provides a mix of employment and civic uses. It will generate consistent daytime activity and attract local services. It will provide a new civic, potentially a new civic public realm space next to the station. It includes opportunities for public open space and key routes from the station through the site, so it's a permeable development proposal. And it also will potentially deliver a new sense of place and a strong sense of arrival around that new station that's been delivered for so on. So in terms of the local plan and the principle of development, the principle's been established through the site allocation. What we're proposing is consistent with that. Officers welcome it, and I believe members should be supportive of those general arrangements. Back onto the vehicular access, like I said, it's been accepted before. What we're proposing now has been checked by Cambridgeshire County Highways team. It's been considered acceptable as well. Drainage and flooding, I just want to pick up on this because it was mentioned by obviously a local resident. We have had to carefully consider it because obviously there is drainage ditches within the site, and the point made about neighbouring properties draining into this site is correct. But our proposals set out mitigation measures which will actually expand the amount of ditch and capacity space for flooding. So as a result of those measures, this development will actually reduce flooding to neighbouring development. So this has all been set out, and that's why the lead local flood authority support the scheme and raise no objection, because it has the potential to improve flooding for neighbouring properties. Lastly, on affordable housing, there's a government white paper that's been published by central government, and it now by de facto places affordable housing at 20% as opposed to 30%, which is obviously what the local council's original policy states. Also, you also have
I'm sorry, I want to drop in quickly. My name is Neil Pistol. I'm one of the landowners. With regard to the flooding and drainage, we spent a lot of time and money on looking at this. We cleared the drains some 2 years ago, and we've understood that the site, with the low level of the site, has to accommodate approximately 1.5 million gallons of water as a precaution for flooding when the load overflows. Now, to accommodate that, we're spending, the design is the culverts and the ditches need to be deepened and significantly widened to take this water. And if we can do this, this will actually increase the flow through the site and stop the flooding back up at Mill Cottage, which we proved when we cleared the site some 2 years ago. There hasn't been, I don't believe, been any significant flooding since then.
Thank you. If you'll just wait where you are, members may have questions. Away we go. Keith.
Thank you, Chair. I have a number of questions, but I won't hog it. I will ask a couple of questions and then quieten and see if others officers ask. You mentioned that the Cambridge County Council Highways team have no problems with this. Yes, is that correct? Okay.
Yeah,
It's
that's
just,
correct.
I quite early this morning I got up and I read again all the papers that have been submitted on the council's website, and I note there was no reference to the comments by the transport assessment team mentioned in the officer's report. And it talks of Trix assessments for the retail use is questionable. Some of the PCU numbers look questionable. It's unclear how the growth rates are calculated. No details have been provided on. Anyway, it goes on. That's the flavour. Here's the summary. I like a punchline. The transport assessment submitted is of poor quality with a number of errors within it. And there was also an earlier comment in that report. That report dated the 6th of October this year, so it's pretty relevant. Where it seemed that if there was a reliance on a previous application's traffic assessment and other road matters, and they commented that it's not acceptable to accept the Highways Authority, local planning authority, members of the public and committee members to have to find a transport assessment for a different planning application. Be interested in your comments in support of your statement that said they haven't got a problem.
No, because we undertook new surveys in September. So there was previous concerns about us relying on surveys that were undertaken around 4 years ago to support the previous application. But as a result of feedback from officers and the County Highways team, we undertook those surveys again. We had people at the local junctions counting the amount of cars travelling in each direction through the course of a day and the entire week. And as a result of that new data, we actually provided an updated transport assessment, and our transport consultant engaged with the local, the County Highways team. And it is our understanding that they came back ultimately and were very satisfied with those updated results.
Well, we'll hear subsequently from the officer, I'm sure, whether or not the reassessment that you did in September somehow wasn't observed when the Transport Assessment team wrote their report the following month and submitted it. Because obviously there seems to be a huge, huge conflict there. I think you'll understand that people are concerned that a previous application for 91 homes, when the local plan says up to 90, suddenly turns into an application for 99 homes when the 91 had previously been rejected. And so I guess my question is, why do you think 99 is a better number than a 91 that was refused on a site that's only approved for up to 90?
As mentioned, this is an outline application, so it's just a parameters application. So it's what we're seeking is up to 99. What we provided the officers, because they wanted to know what sort of scheme could be expected to come forward in the future, we actually provided more information than we needed to at planning stage. We provided an indicative scheme for 91 houses, which is what one of the neighbours referred to earlier. So even though we're seeking permission for up to 99 homes. That's not necessarily what we will end up delivering, because it'll be subject to you, the local authority, to decide what is acceptable at the reserve matter stage. So it could be very possible that when we come back to you in the future, that you say to us that actually no, 99 doesn't work, 91 or 89 is what works on this site. But in terms of this being an outline application, I think it's reasonable, because we don't know what shape and form and height the scheme could ultimately be. It's a reasonable number given the allocation, because it talks about approximately 90 homes. It's a reasonable number to consider acceptable for an outline stage.
If I may, I'll have one quick question, and then I'll
That's
rest,
okay.
because I don't want to hog it. Did you read the Soham and Barway neighbourhood plan before putting this application in? Thank you.
Councillor Okenlawa.
Thank you, Chair. To clarify, the housing officer has mentioned that 30% affordable housing is possible. So can you just clearly identify and tell us why you've gone from 20%? Thank you.
I'm really glad you asked that question, because I actually didn't get a chance to finish my point on affordable housing, because we did submit a viability assessment with our application as well that demonstrates that actually even the 20% affordable housing offer that we're giving you is more than what this scheme probably could potentially deliver. But we've spoken to the landowner who's here with us today, and they're satisfied to basically sacrifice profit in order to provide the uplift in affordable. Also, officers are going to put in early and late review mechanisms as well, so that if the site becomes more profitable in the future, we could potentially deliver more. But the government white paper, like I was describing, actually recognises that there's a lot of development sites in the country generally, and in this area as well, really struggling to be viable, and market conditions are very difficult, construction costs are very high, and to bring these sorts of sites forward, I think we've been actually incredibly generous, providing a 20% affordable housing offer.
So, and just a follow-up question on that. They also mentioned the local registered need in regards to a higher number of 1 to 2 bedroom houses. In regards to the bigger houses, will you commit to supporting the needs according to the local areas of 1 and 2 bedroom houses?
Yes, so over the previous few days, actually, I've been talking to the case officer about ensuring that the Section 106 obligation, which will specify the housing mix and the level of affordable housing and all the other contributions for infrastructure that the council will surely require, to make sure there's enough viability in the Section 106, enough flexibility in the Section 106 to ensure that the scheme is able to come forward in a way that meets the council's aspirations.
Thank you. Another question, sorry. In regards to the flooding, because I'm just looking at the comments by the local flood authority, can you tell us what investigations you have done to ensure you have a functioning outfall? And also answering the question by the second person who objected to the application. Thank you.
I will caveat my response on drainage and flooding is that I'm not the flood consultant that dealt with this, this specialist advice, but our flood consultant did ensure that the scheme would reduce flooding for neighbouring properties. They inspected all the culverts, like the landowner said. There's already been work undertaken, and there's significant work planned in the future. Isn't that right, Neil?
Could I help answer that?
With respect, I did say that would your questions be, when you were answered by members, they'd be sort of simple yes, no, yes, we can do that. I've given you a lot of flexibility. Please answer the questions and don't consider it as an extra extension of your application time. Thank you.
there is a flooding risk on site because the drainage channel from where is it Mrs. Martin lives flows under the road, Station Road, and that can back up. Our idea plan, which we would like to submit, opens that out to much wider, to allow more water to flow through the road onto our site and permeate through it, to stop the back flooding because the water can't get through the pipe because there's blockages on the land, on the development side.
Thank you. This last question. What's your vision for the play areas?
If I can just have a little bit of maths. Members are asking one question, and it seems to me, in my uneducated mind, that you've exceeded that figure. Will you please be very quick and ask it in a way that the applicants can answer quickly?
Last question for now. What's your vision for the play area and the open spaces in terms of accessibility for SEND kids or disabled people in that area? What's your vision for the area?
So we saw a plan earlier, actually this one, but there's also another plan that the site is quite heavily constrained in terms of where we can build, because there's a gas pipeline and there's drainage ditches, there's going to be biodiversity green corridor. So, but it being quite heavily constrained for built development means there's actually quite a lot of the land that's going to be left open in terms of communal spaces. So we've identified opportunity locations for the play spaces on those parts of the site that we're obviously not going to be able to build anything. But the scale and amount of that space at the moment hasn't been agreed. It will be agreed at reserved matter stage, but it will also be subject to the housing mix and tenure as well. And that is something that will evolve and be determined at reserved matter stage. So at this stage, we've done exactly what you would expect to see, which is identify locations for it, but the actual scale and amount
This
of it.
just can't go on.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the question, for the answer.
Other members, have you any questions? Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. If this gets approval today and it goes to reserved matters, will you be involving local residents in a consultation on how it's designed and how it looks?
We'd be more than happy to do so, and obviously we heard the feedback today, and I feel like we can accommodate the concerns that was raised actually quite simply, so absolutely.
Thank you, Chair. As I've been instructed, yes or no answers?
Excuse me, I was writing down and I didn't hear the answer to your question. Did you get a satisfactory answer? Thank you. Okay, Councillor Hogan.
Thank you again, Chair. So, looking at the report submitted, the indicative accommodations schedule dated the 10th of October 2024 advises an affordable home percentage of 21%. Is that still the same figure?
No.
So what is it now then?
20%.
So it's gone down. Okay. I don't need an answer to that. I know that 20 is less than 21. Again, reading in the Financial Viability Assessment Review dated the 23rd of May this year, so that was after the original indicative accommodation schedule. In there's a paragraph that says, as of May 2025, we have received further information from the Council, including accommodation prepared by Total Planning, with a reference number. The schedule summary has provided confirmation that commercial use will be 450 square metres. We therefore adopted the assumptions that the financial position shows an £862,280 surplus. Sorry, you said the site was borderline viability? £862,000 surplus, and you can't hit 30%, even though there are comments in the paperwork and in the officer's report which suggests a 30% affordability percentage is achievable. Could you help me understand why that's wrong?
So that was the conclusions of the council's viability consultant, but our viability consultant's conclusions were very, very different to that. Now, so there's a dispute in that sense between the council's viability conclusions and our viability consultant's conclusions, but that's not untypical. So but if you blend those contrasting opinions, and usually what goes into a viability report is a set of parameters, basically. So small differences in things, for example, like the cost of materials can actually make a big difference to a development site of this scale overall. So what I was trying to explain is that actually, and it has come to a conclusion that it's reasonable to understand that the current climate is that this scheme, and actually I should just say that even £800,000 surplus, a developer and landowner is expected to make money on sites. So you wouldn't have this site come forward actually in the first place if nobody was making any money. Like, that's just the way viability works. And like I explained, is actually the situation is we're providing 20% affordable, but what we would expect a developer to make on a development site is 20% or 15 to 20%. That's the national kind of what the government considers to be an appropriate level. And on this development site, the developer is willing to sacrifice some of that percentage actually in order to ensure that you get your 20%, as opposed, because from our point of view and our viability consultant's point of view, we believe that actually the developer's taking a much larger risk bringing this site forward, because actually the viability suggests that his profit margin would be significantly less, and actually there would be a deficit. I know that's a very complicated way to explain it, but this isn't a very simple, it's not a very simple question.
Perhaps I could simplify it saying your experts and our experts disagree.
There's never full agreement on viability, I think that's
we are in a section where there's members' questions to the applicants to be answered simply and quickly. Have you finished, Councillor?
Yeah, no, I was merely trying to assist.
I understand your good wishes.
Yeah, we all know experts sometimes disagree, and this is a case where at the moment there appears to be, I'm not saying you're wrong, I'm not saying we're wrong, but there appears to be a difference of opinion, and we'll leave it at, no, I think we'll leave it at that.
Just one last point, if I may, because the officers have cleverly put in an early and late review mechanism, which will allow us to more precisely, which I think is the important bit.
Members, any more questions for the applicants? Come back for your second
Thank you, Chair.
go.
That's one short question. Some local comments have mentioned that there will be no provision for older people. I don't know how true that comment is, but in regards to your future plan for whatever you're doing, what proportion of homes are you committing to ensure they're accessible for older people and disabled people?
Usually on a development, we would provide 10% accessible homes.
Thank you.
Councillor Colbert.
No, I'm so sorry. That was a mistake. Yeah.
Councillor Whelan. Oh. Okay, well, it looks like that's the end of councillors' questions. Now, we are... What have you got to say? Sorry.
I wanted to ask if it would be possible for the officer to clarify the situation with regard to the highways report, which has not yet, is still a little bit open.
Exceptionally, I'll allow you to ask the officer the question. We are going to get to a question to officers from the members. So if you've got one question to ask, please do it quickly, and I'll give you consent to do it.
Thank you very much. Would the officer please clarify the situation with regard to highways and the new report that was submitted?
So the developer was advised by County Council to redo their transport assessment, which they did do. In paragraph 7.64, it does say that the County Highways Authority raised concerns over missing or unclear data within the transport statement, including growth rate assumptions, visibility display measurements, and junction modelling inputs. It is noted that 2030 anticipated year of full occupation was not modelled, contrary to the Cambridgeshire Transport Assessment requirements, though 2035 results indicate no capacity issues. While the transport statement contains several technical errors, the available data suggests that the development would not have a severe impact on the local highway network, and that the Mearside Station Road Junction would continue to operate within capacity. So the County Council did state that obviously this is a worst case scenario option. When the development does come forward with the exact quantum, they will have to submit a new transport assessment, but based on the worst case scenario, there would be no severe material impact.
Thank you. That's the end of this section. I would just say that I've been a member of the planning committees for many, many, many years, and I can't recall an occasion where outline permission was given for a certain number, and then when the reserve matters came in, it was a lower figure. It's not something that I'm familiar with. It's normally, if it's up to 99, it's 99. I look forward to being wrong, and maybe when you've considered it, you'll find that a lower figure may be appropriate. But that would be entirely up to you and liven my old age. Thank you very much indeed. We now have Councillor Alec Jones from the Parish Council. Not here. Have you got anything to read out, Patrick? No? Okay, well, we do have one Parish Councillor here. Is there anything you would like to contribute?
As I said earlier, as a town councillor for Soham, I had not been and was not involved in
No,
any
so you
aspect.
haven't had anything.
So no.
Okay, we'll forget that. Okay, so now we've got no one coming from there. So there's further comments from officers. Have you any comments you'd like to make?
Can we have questions to officers?
Now we've now got questions to officers. Oh, right, would you like to make a list? We'll,
Councillor Lay was the first one.
Councillor Lay.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I have three problems of my own mind. I don't believe that I have been satisfied with the water drainage plan because I don't believe that we have had a complete water drainage plan that convinces me that we know exactly what we're going to do as far as cutting a culvert at the back, how deep it's going to be, how much water will go through it. And I think for this particular site, this is so important that we get this right because it's a brownfield site. I think that I'm not satisfied with the water drainage plan. Can you help me?
The simple answer, Councillor Lay, is at the moment we're at outline stage, so we have to be satisfied that there is a scheme that can be provided which will satisfy us on drainage. We've gone to the LLFA, who have said that the information that's been provided so far satisfies them that a scheme can be provided. The detail, as you're asking for, will come forward at reserve matters stage, because obviously, until we know exactly where and how many of those houses are, that will then dictate where and what that drainage strategy will be. So until we get to that sort of final layout stage, at the moment we're effectively theorising that the LLFA are satisfied that there is a capacity within the site and within mitigation measures to be able to successfully put forward a drainage scheme on that site.
Councillor Akinwale.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to clarify, how much weight have you given to the neighbourhood plan in comparison to national policies like the SOH2 and the rest? Thank you.
The neighbourhood plan has been given significant weight. Throughout the report, it's always at the forefront. The neighbourhood policies in relation to affordable housing, for ecological mitigation, they're all primarily based around what is required by the neighbourhood plan. So, for example, there's the Natural England had highlighted substantial recreational pressure on the Soham Commons, and the neighbourhood plan requires contributions to mitigate that. So those have been also considered as part of the contributions, and the developer will have to contribute financially towards the Soham Commons fund to mitigate that pressure. So it has been given significant weight.
What about in regards to the housing mix and the, because I know that some of the houses would be above 2.5, whereas the neighbourhood plan proposes below that. What is your comment on that?
I believe they are in broad compliance with the neighbourhood plan. However, the final mix has not been put forward yet. It's still at outline stage. So there was an indicative accommodation schedule that was put forward, but that's no longer applicable. They essentially, the applicant has stated that the mix moving forward at Reserve Matters will be compliant with Soham's neighbourhood plan and the local plan.
Thank you.
Councillor Colbert.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Well, mine's fairly brief. I saw in the documents there are a lot of recommended conditions which cover trees and drainage and the handling of water in various different ways and all sorts of other things. Am I correct in my belief that if we approve this application today, all of those recommendations will be an integral part of the approval?
Yes.
Thank you very much. In that case, may I propose approval of the plans? No, I can't, sorry.
Councillor Horgan.
Yes, reading the Soham Town Council submission, they listed 13 objections. I won't take us through all 13 of them. I'll just focus on 3. Insufficient affordable homes, we've already heard about that, and it seems as if it's got worse from 21% down to 20%, yet the Soham and Barway neighbourhood plan calls for 30%, not 20%. 13 of the proposed dwellings, and I appreciate they're just indicative at this stage, actually fall below the legal floor space standard for homes of those size, according to their objections, and there is a lack of a health, well-being and health and impact assessment which the Soham and Barway neighbourhood plan requires, so presumably that will come forward subsequently. But again, I just want to touch on this 2.5, 3 and 3.5 story building in a 2-story maximum currently area, and how I'd like to understand, please, as you did with my colleague here, help me understand how sufficient weight's been given to the neighbourhood plan, and yet 2.5, 3 and 3.5 story buildings in an area which are 2-story maximum in that area is in itself compliant with the neighbourhood plan. Please help me.
So if we go to paragraph 7.36, It says taller elements up to 3.5 stories are positioned near the railway, stepping down to 2 to 2.5 stories towards existing dwellings. While this slightly exceeds the neighbourhood plan's height limit of 2.5 stories, the approach reflects national policy objectives to optimise site potential. Additionally, the supporting text for policy, the Neighbourhood Plan Policy 17, high quality design, allows for higher residential development where they are located at key locations and where it would not dominate the landscape and respect the character. This will be subject to further review through a landscape and visual impact assessment at reserve matter stage. So there is supporting text within that policy which allows for higher buildings, taller buildings, but obviously they will be subject to further assessment once the scale and height come forward as part of a reserve matters.
Oh, should be a yes or no answer. I note in the Senior Ecologist report dated the 8th of May 2025 raised 3 objections. Missing information, potential harm to protected species and an IRZ zone impact not addressed. Are you satisfied that these are now all addressed in either conditions or a Section 106 agreement?
Yes.
Thank you very much for your professional interpretation of the section we're in. We now move on to debate. So members, now's the time to debate. Councillor Delacourt.
Thank you, Chair. Look, I don't think there's enough material for us to refuse the principle of this outline stage. There is a lot to be clarified at reserve matters. I think we've probably strayed into a little bit of that here. We don't yet have it all, and that's not what an outline application is about, so that's fine. I would strongly push you. 20% affordable housing is not incredibly generous, right? We have, it's the bare minimum. We have a viability assessment in SOAM that says 20% is the minimum. No other scheme in SOAM defines 20% as incredibly generous, and young people in the town are in dire need of that. So I would push you very strongly there. I don't accept it. We know you have to make profit. We have to consider the public interest in this land. And I do also think there are some issues with flood viability, but I am satisfied with some of the mitigations that are in that. Again, that's something that will need to be very clear about that. I do think Soham Station and commuters from Soham Station in the future will benefit from this site. I think there will be a beneficial open space. And in terms of location, I think if we're going to accept an application, a brownfield site on the edge of the town within the local plan area is as acceptable as it gets in outline principle. So what I'm going to therefore propose is we adopt the officer recommendations as written, so that will be that if the Section 106 application does not happen, it will be refused, and we delegate authority to do that. But what I would propose is we add an additional recommendation to insist that this committee receives the outline application for consideration.
Patrick, that's being noted, the suggestion. Councillor Colbert.
I'd like to second Councillor Vellacott's proposal.
I would like to adopt the officer recommendations as written. That includes the strict condition that we refuse the application if the Section 106 doesn't happen. But I would like to add an additional recommendation to insist that this committee receives any associated reserve matters applications for consideration.
This is to bring it back to this committee.
That is correct, Chair.
So we have that. We'll make a note of that, Councillor Delacourt and Councillor Colbert's suggestion. But now we continue with the debate section. Councillor Horgan, I believe you've indicated.
Yes, I feel I've been robust with my questioning of both the officer and the applicant. I do do believe that this would not be a popular decision going forward in Soham. But then again, many new developments, as we've heard in the past, are not always popular. But equally, one cannot ignore that this is a site that is allocated for up to 90 homes. And I mention that number again so that everybody can say they've heard that number. And I think, as Councillor Vedicott has put quite well, there really are no grounds at an outline stage where we can disagree with what the officer has put. Appreciate that it would have been nice to have known that there's been a subsequent transport plan, and that maybe would have saved me a lot of my questions. But hey, we live in an imperfect world. So broadly speaking, on the basis that there are no real reasons to turn this outline application down, I'll be voting in favour of it.
Thank you. I'm going to paint a little analogy here in my summing up, which is, as a child, this time of year, you'd be looking forward to what you persuaded mum you wanted for Christmas. Always mum, not dad. And you wanted a bike for Christmas. And at that particular point, which for me was normally around the end of August, I would be starting my campaigning for what I wanted for Christmas. What you'd be asking for is the outline idea that I may be able to have a bike this Christmas. I had to be very good. I had to pass an awful lot of tests. I had to provide an awful lot of homework, an awful lot of good things to be in a position come Christmas time to get that bike. And I think that's a similar analogy to where we're at now. I absolutely 100% back the proposal that matters come back before this committee and have a chance to debate it. This is, I believe, is the 4th application on this site. But I would also like to say, in defence of the site has been allocated since, I think, prior to 2015. So it's been on the list for 10 years. We have a duty to bring forward new housing. It's not always in the location people want. It's not always what people want. We don't know what this is going to be yet. We have some indications. And that's what I'll bring back to my bike. If I really, really wanted that bike, I had to make sure that I pleased the people that mattered, that were going to bring forward that bike. I would use that analogy and make sure that the applicants know that that's exactly what you're going to have to do if you're coming back here with reserved matters, and making sure that they're all the T's are crossed, all the I's are dotted. There is a perfectly understandable drainage plan that we can all buy into, right? Recognising the issues today of Ms Martin and her colleague and things like that. It's also recognising that there are other reports. Councillor Horgan mentioned as well there are 13 issues here, Selina, of points of policy from the local plan coming from our town council. You know, we shouldn't run roughshod over our town council. We should be listening to them and working with them. I believe they're the baseline of democracy and what we do in this country. And I think we should be making sure that each of these are answerable. They may not all be correct. Town councils make mistakes. We do make mistakes, okay? But I think we should be following. So with that in mind and the fact that outline is what we're granting today, I also back the amended plans from Councillor Vedicott, and it's already been seconded, so it will gain my support.
Councillor Huffer.
Thank you, Chair. This is a brownfield site. I would rather we're building on brownfield sites than on farmland. I accept about the flooding risk, but again, various councillors have said this is an outline application. The reserve matters will be going over with a fine-tooth comb, and if you don't cut the mustard, it will be refused. You have to come up with reasonable plans that don't affect neighbours in terms of overlooking, in terms of flooding, in terms of everything else. And as far as we can only afford 20% affordable homes, Bellway in Fordham are producing 30 and 40% affordable homes, and I don't see them living on the breadline either. So you need to rethink that number to bring it up to what is acceptable to this council, which is 30%. other than that, this outline application has my support.
Thank you very much. Councillor Whelan, I thought I saw your hand sort of hovering between the desks, but please go ahead.
Just to say that obviously my concerns are about the 20% affordable housing, where our policy is 30%. I'm also looking at the actual entrance to the site and up to 99 homes, and having potentially 150 cars on that site is an issue coming onto the road that's not particularly wide. That would be my concerns. Obviously, this will come back if this gets approved as reserve matters. But that is a real concern to me, the amount of traffic that would come. I mean, they're saying that like the train station will be used, and I've no doubt about that. But the fact that there's only one train every 2 hours, as far as I'm aware, and it's not a direct route into London, that is also a concern, that people have to go up to Ely or down to actually get, if people are working further afield in Cambridge. So the potential is that some people who live in that area would have to travel by car, bearing in mind that Soham, you know, is when I lived there a few years ago, we had to drive everywhere because there wasn't any reasonable transport at that particular time. So that is my concern about the maybe up to 99 houses, that there would be a lot of more cars on that actual road, and I'm not convinced that the traffic survey is a viable survey. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, members. I'd just like to make a comment. Councillor Whelan, I agree personally as almost everything you said, and I think you've actually, you know, you've expressed yourself very well, and the concerns that most people would have. And thank you for it. I do believe that the railway improvements are coming. They're long and they're expensive, and of course it needs a more regular service. And of course, and I have to say I was concerned when the station first was suggested for reopening, and I thought the people of Soham would think they were suddenly being connected to the world, and of course they're not, until we get the link at Newmarket and the dualling of the traffic. But it's ongoing, and we've got a station that reopened and we're on the route, so that's okay. I'd written down while the discussion was going on, outline, making a note that it was outline and absolutely reserved to the committee. I think it's absolutely right that he goes. I also wrote down here 91 and then 99 question mark, which means, and I did in some lightness say I'd never come across an application that's less, but of course the argument about the different sizes is a valid one. But I think Councillor Huffer has really expressed the view very well, and so did Councillor Goldsack. Yes, in principle, there will be housing on that site. Yes, I suspect the committee are going to vote to approve it, but we will. I will certainly make a point that we should be come back to this committee for reserve matters, and there is a lot of sort of concerns, and I hope in your negotiations with the officers here, those concerns are dealt with, because we suspect it'll all go ahead, but it's like Councillor Goldsack, he's got to be nice to Auntie Bert or Auntie Sylvia if he wants to get his bike for Christmas. So now, unless there's anything else going on, we will now move on to the, we're clear what the motion is as proposed by Councillor Vellacott. Patrick, have you got down the addition? Would you like to read it out, please?
The addition I have, Chair, is the committee receives any associated reserve matter applications.
Now, and that's seconded by Councillor Colbert. Now we're going to go to the vote. Now, are all those in favour, will you please raise your hands?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in favour, Chair.
And is there anybody here who is abstaining? Raise their hands. One abstention. And if my maths are right, there won't be anyone against it. But of those against the proposal, please raise their hands. None. Okay. Consent has been, it is effective. But please, I, as a chairman of the committee, I would ask you to bear in mind some of the comments that have been made and take them seriously. And we look forward to seeing you here again when all the details have been dealt with. Thank you.
Chair.
Okay,
Chair, at this juncture,
it
may,
looks
may
like,
I ask for a 5-minute comfort break?
Office, have we declared a comfort break above the chairman's head?
Councillor Vellacott has requested a comfort break.
Okay, in which case we will now have, it seems the democracy has triumphed, and we will have a 5-minute comfort break till 25 past. There's a comfort break, so you can relax. we now move on to agenda item 6, and I'll ask Kevin to make his proposal.
Thank you, Chair. Agenda item 6 is the confirmation of tree preservation order E0325 for a 2.8 acre woodland in Prickwillow. On your screen, you'll be able to see the location of the woodland within the Prickwillow area. It's quite substantial in size, and as the overhead showing the density of tree cover, which members will remember from their site visit, although autumn it looked a bit more sparse. So, the proposal is to confirm the TPO without modification. The main considerations are that the amenity value of the woodland, that the protection of the woodland was at the request of the tree owner, and the opinion of a neighbour who objects to the confirmation of the TPO in its current form. The support from the TPO from a second neighbour and 2 others. There's additional people have commented to provide support for the TPO since the members' pack was produced. The value of the woodland in the local landscape and its ecological value. On your screen, you'll see the tempo assessment, which is generally worked on for trees, a single tree, but this was done for the woodland. As you see, it's scored quite highly due to its visibility and amenity value. The woodland owners requested that the TPO be given, the woodland be given long-term protection themselves. One objection was to the surveying was received from a neighbouring property owner during the consultation period. There were 3 supportive consultee responses received from neighbouring property owners and local residents. No consultation responses were received from the parish council regarding the TPO, the making of it, or it coming to committee. So the key objection points were that the benefits of to the local community were overstated, as there was no public right of access or real visibility from the village road. There is a general lack of maintenance of the woodland, resulting in overhanging branches, shading, unpleasant outlook, and health and safety implications. The TPO will prevent anyone being able to do anything to address the issues being caused currently or in the future, and a buffer zone would avoid the unnecessary issues experienced. The indicated area should be cleared, exempt from the TPO, to ensure that they don't have any of these problems in the future. So this is the plan that was provided showing the indicated buffer zone, which was its widest point behind the property that is objected, is 17 metres in width. So, responses are that the limited views through the gaps between properties and over the roofs of the bungalows and from the drainage room car park were considered as part of the assessment. There is also very clear views of the woodland from the Isleham Road. I calculated using Google earlier that from 2 miles away you can still see the woodland as an identifiable feature in the landscape. The TPO does not stop reasonable maintenance, and the claimed light obstruction, overhanging branches and shading are considered minor in nature, and pruning options available to reduce these or remove the claimed issues. The TPO does not stop reasonable maintenance, just means that an application is required. But that doesn't include deadwood, which can be removed without it. And there are processes available in effect that allow works to be done expediently through storm damage and the like. So neighbouring landowners can submit applications to underwork the trees where they overhang their vertical boundary. They are allowed to do those works under their common law rights. They would just need to put in an application, and planning applications for works to trees are free. And not confirming the TPO would not result in an obligation or in the whole area. So providing not confirming the TPO to cover that buffer area would not result in an obligation for the trees to be removed. The landowner would not be legally obliged to remove that just because they're not covered by the TPO. So although amenity is a subjective term and it's open to interpretation, public amenity can be described as a feature which benefits and enhances an area, contributing to the area's overall character for the public at large. In this case, the woodland is mature, visible from the public footpath and road to the front of the property and from the Isleham Road, and it's also visible from neighbouring gardens, and it's considered to benefit the area in relation to its significant visual contribution to the local landscape, its biodiversity and character of the area, and is considered of sufficient public amenity to warrant long-term protection. So, as such, members are recommended to approve the confirmation of the tree preservation order for the following reasons: that the woodland is a prominent feature in good health, offers a significant visual contribution to the amenity and local landscape, and is in this part of Prickwallow and the wider ECDC area. Woodlands being quite uncommon in this part of East Cambridgeshire. It also provides a significant ecological benefit and habitat provision rare in this part of Cambridgeshire.
Thank you very much indeed. Very comprehensive report. Thank you. We now have a letter from an objector. I think it's Mrs. Quinn, which Patrick is going to read out, unless Mrs. Quinn is here. No. Okay, Patrick, where you go.
Thank you, Chair. Objector statement from Rebecca and Sean Quinn. We live at 42 Main Street, Prickwallow, and own the house which backs directly onto the area which is subject to this TPO. As both my husband and I work full-time, we're unable to attend the hearing today. This is meant with no disrespect at all to the committee, but as a teacher and a lawyer, we have student-client commitments which prevent us attending a hearing in the middle of the day. We originally submitted objection to the TPO during the summer. The Council acknowledged our objection and provided further information. We have since responded to this by email and provided further photographic evidence of the trees overhanging significantly into our garden. We have also discussed our concerns with the applicants. We have at all times maintained that it is not the concept of the TPO per se that we object to. It is the scope of it and the failure of the applicants to adequately maintain the land it relates to and the implication this has for us going forward if the TPO is granted as drafted. Our main concerns are 1, scope of the TPO, and 2, maintenance of the land. Scope of the TPO. The TPO covers a wider area than the area where the trees, which were the subject of the original grant funding, are planted. It comes right up to the boundary of our property where there are other trees of a different type. The Council has stated that there are clear views of the woodland from publicly accessible locations, such as between the properties on Main Street and the Drainage Museum, which is sufficient for the woodland to have a public amenity value. We feel this is a real stretch, as the views are limited and there's very little space between the houses allowing the view. Maintenance of the land. It is our opinion the applicants do not adequately maintain the area. This routine maintenance was a condition of the grant to plant the trees in the first place, and this obligation is not fulfilled in any shape or form at the present time. We've repeatedly requested that the trees be maintained around the area that immediately buffers the boundary line of our property, and they have failed to do so, despite saying if we ever needed anything doing, just to tell them. They even came round following our objection, and we explained our concerns, and still nothing has been done. This situation will undoubtedly not improve once the TPO is formalised. Whilst we've been advised that the presence of a TPO does not stop reasonable maintenance, we will be legally required to submit requests for approval before anything at all can be done to the trees, which are the subject of the TPO. This will inevitably cause us to incur time and inconvenience. Failure to do would leave us liable to costs and sanctions. We feel that the owners should not be on us to do this. We are very busy professionals and feel the owners should be on the owners of the land to conduct reasonable and proactive maintenance so the issues do not arise, rather than us having to constantly waste time and energy to resolve problems not of our making. We do not feel we should have to seek approval for issues which are existing before the commencement of the order. We would imagine that reasonable and considerate action should be insisted upon before either order is formalised. We see no equity in us having to apply already for permission to solve pre-existing issues. Excuse me. The applicants have not planted any trees in their own sight line from their own property, yet the trees come up and in some cases actually intrude over our boundary line. This causes health and safety issues as they overhang our daughter's trampoline, but at least 15 feet. We asked to control the nettles that protrude onto our child's trampoline. We were told yes, but they are great for the peacocks. No action or engagement with us has occurred since this conversation in the summer. We've suggested a smaller buffer zone so that the TPO does not include trees in our boundary line, which were not part of the original planting, are in fact a different species of tree altogether. This would mean we were able to prune such trees should they overhang our property without having to apply for approval. We consider this as a reasonable compromise and adjustment to ensure no ongoing issues, no time wasted, and no unnecessary expense. We would then have no objections. We provide a plan of such a buffer to the Council previously. We do not consider that we should be penalised for the applicant's failure to maintain their own project, one which does not negatively impact on them at all but does us, especially when the scope of the TPO could legitimately be restricted to the original planting without any negative implications for anyone. Many thanks for taking the time to consider our response.
Thank you very, very much indeed. We have, I believe in person, the owner of the wood, Sonia Lewis. Now you have 5 minutes.
Yes, okay.
You've turned the light on.
I've done that, yes.
Start when you. And if we get to the stage, you're probably paying attention to the previous item. If we get to the stage where members want to ask you questions, they may well do.
Okay.
But again, my request to you is not to consider it as an extension of your speaking and application time.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
So we moved to Prickwillow in 1998, and we had just over the hectare of grassland, which hadn't been used for years and years. And so this is when we began to plant our wood. The small whips at the time, mainly, they are deciduous native trees. They barely showed above the grass. And at that time, there was only one other house in sight. The Hereward Housing Terrace, which was there, was due for demolition. And it wasn't till many years later that 2 large detached houses were built. And incidentally, the people on either side of the person in question who's objecting, they like the wood. Their boundary is exactly the same. The new occupants, initially as well, before these people, regarded the wood as an asset, saying they'd rather have the wood than houses. The trees there have constantly amazed us. In no time at all, we had birds, insects, butterflies to take up residence. 2 species of butterflies especially delighted me. I was learning, I read about the alder buckthorn, which is the food for the brimstone, and we planted a few buckthorn, and blow me, in came the brimstone butterflies within the next spring. We have speckled woods flitting amongst the trees, which couldn't be possible without trees. And I record this in a wood diary. I call it my wood diary, but it's well recorded so that any change in species, whether all the rest goes in it. We have sparrowhawk, buzzard, green and speckled woodpeckers. They all have nested, as well as all the more common garden birds, blackbirds, thrushes, robins, etc., siskins in the alders. And more recently, we have seen a revival of the hedgehogs, which is lovely, and bats roost in the alders. The wood has given us and continues to give back so much. John, my husband, made ladderback chairs from mostly the ash and the cherry. I fire my pots in a wood kiln, and I make glazes from the wood ash that it supplies. Each year, though, we open our wood during July weekends for open studios, and anybody can come, anybody. And that occurs quite regularly, and a lot of people have. We've tried to follow good management practice in our wood. We have been learning on a sharp learning curve, but for quite a long time now, and we have help with that from the Small Woods organisation. So we were thinking in particular, because of our age, we decided to apply for this TPO because we thought we're not going to last forever for church. But sadly, my husband has demonstrated this because he died at the end of August. But this merely emphasises the fact that when I die, and probably many of us here too, the trees will still be here. I like to think they're a legacy for all of us. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you very much. You've got some spare time,
Okay.
but thank you. Members, questions? Councillor Huffer is first.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, commiserations on your loss. I can't imagine what you're going through. Can you tell me, and this you may not know precisely, when did the neighbours who were objecting, when did they move into the house? Roughly, give or take. 5 years ago, 10 years ago? So the wood was well established. So it didn't come as a surprise to them. They didn't suddenly look out the window and say, whoa, where's that come from? That's all I wanted to know. Thank you very much.
Councillor Lay.
Yes, I wanted to know what happened to the bees. The bees, yes. I noticed that, but I couldn't see any.
Can you microphone?
Sorry, we still have one hive, and I'm expecting to expand that, if you're talking about the honeybees. Yes, and we get honey from the trees, obviously the pollen, lime, all sorts, yeah.
Councillor Akinwale.
Oh, I think I've got it on, haven't I? I've got to turn it.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to ask, if the TPO is granted, will you be willing to work with the tree officer to draw up a simple management plan to keep the maintenance of the shared boundary of the tree? So let's say the TPO is granted today.
Microphone, please.
Yeah. So along the shared boundary, in regards to the shared boundary between you and the neighbor, would you be willing to work with the tree officer to draw up a simple management plan in terms of the maintenance of that shared boundary? Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. And one last question. What's your vision for, so obviously, I'm sorry for your loss as well. So what's your vision for the TPO, what it will do for the tree in the next 10 to 20 years? What do you hope the TPO will do for that tree in the next 20 years from now?
Well, we're assuming it will be a conservation area. It is an amenity in its own right, but people can use. Many children actually regularly come, children from the village. And I would hope that continues. I have a son who lives in Downham Market who's willing to take that part of it on. If that's any.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Horgan.
Thank you, Chair. My condolences for your loss as well. Very sorry to hear that. You mentioned that you used some of the wood, I think ash you mentioned, and burned it in fires to do some pottery or something, was it? Was that dead wood that you used, or was that wood that was taken from the trees? Before you answer, I'll let you know why I'm asking. It's because if it is dead wood, then my understanding is that yes, you can take that away with abandon. But if you're actually taking wood off of a live tree, or even by pruning, you're going to need to get a, what's it called, Kevin? Consent. That's the word I'm looking for. You need to get consent every time you do that to burn your own wood in your own fire. Are you okay with that?
Yes.
Right, Councillor Goldsack.
I was told this some while ago, and I think it really applies today, that wise is the man that plants a tree, the shade of which he'll never see. Okay, and I think that's an Italian proverb, and I think it's a very wise one now. Luckily, and passing through my condolences, your husband did see more than the shade for the tree, so for that we're very grateful. However, I want to come at this from the view of the neighbours. Yes, they might have bought the house since the wood was there, etc., etc. But as somebody who's got neighbours that are taking no consideration over self-set sycamores that are then running amok and ruining my garden, right? Ruining my, no, you're probably looking and saying, I haven't got any sycamores. It then becomes my problem, right? So I would actually go one stage further than I think it was Councillor Akinwala that said about the maintenance plan. Do you feel that you have a maintenance plan that's protecting your neighbours' boundaries that's effective today? And would you be prepared, as you've already said, you will be prepared to have that reviewed and maybe commented on for future? And that's in full recognition of you are very fit and very able-bodied at the moment, as we all are.
A chap called Sean Reader, who actually does quite a lot with the Wildlife Trust, he has regularly come in to do felling, and we've made sure we fell trees that are particularly near boundaries. And in this instant, I have asked, I do go round and see these neighbours. They only leave letters, which aren't pleasant with us. But I do go round and say, if there's anything you want, please tell us. I think we want to be reasonable. That's all I can say. Really.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, I think we're done there, and questions to you, and thank you very much indeed. And comments from the officer, anything you'd like to say that's cropped up so far?
No, other than I'm more than happy to communicate with the tree owner and on management plans and stuff, and same as I would be for any tree owner within the East Cambs district.
Questions to the officer? Yes, you are number one. Keith.
I always thought I was your special. Kevin, I think many of us have, as we've just heard, experienced overgrown trees from our neighbours, which, generally speaking, we have a right to prune back to the boundary line as long as we return the pruned item across the fence into their gardens, i.e. we don't steal the bits we've cut off. How is anyone supposed to know that the tree that's overhanging into their garden has a TPO on it? Because obviously you don't have one stapled to a tree itself, do you?
The TPO plans are all readily available via links on the East Cambs website, and as part of the making of a TPO and the confirmation, all neighbouring properties are informed of the TPO.
So neighbouring properties are informed, and obviously that should be a record that then, if they sold the property, gets passed on. Great. One last question. Is there a charge for a consent to prune a TPO tree?
Nope, it's completely free.
Have we got any more questions? Doesn't look like many. So we now move on to the debate. Just a question to officer. Well, I haven't even finished the sentence yet.
Keen to get her hand up.
So
I've got a huffer down here, Chairman.
Councillor Huffer, would you like to start the debate session?
I would, Chair. My house, when I bought it, I was told, and we knew immediately, every single tree surrounding our house has a TPO on it, blanket TPO, and we just respect it, to be honest with you. We respect it. We can't grow grass in certain parts of the garden. We have leaves that fall or things that fall constantly, but it's part of living in the countryside. And with all due respect to these neighbours, when they moved in, the wood was already there. It was well established. It did not come as a surprise to them. If the overhanging leaves are interfering with their daughter's trampoline, move the trampoline. Surely is common sense. I am more than happy to fully endorse Kevin's recommendation for a TPO on this wood. It is beautiful and should be protected and maintained for generations to come. And I respect the neighbours' opinions 100%. But the wood was there before they moved in exactly the same situation when we viewed that house and there were lime trees everywhere. We knew what we were getting. It didn't come as a surprise, and we knew there was a TPO on absolutely everything, and we've had to work with it, live with it, and respect it. Woodland is hard to come by. certainly in this neck of the woods. So let's embrace it and enjoy it. Thank you, Chair.
I'd just like to interfere a little bit myself. I've had very little opportunity this afternoon to make my own comments clear on various matters, and I would like to use the authority of the Chair to actually go in front of you, Councillor Hugfer, and make the proposal, and I would like to propose that we adopt the officer's recommendations, and if you'll excuse me to ask you to be the seconder.
Happy to yield, Chair.
So I'm making a note that I've proposed it, that Councillor Huffer has seconded it, and other members. Akinawa.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to ask if it's possible to add a condition for the simple management plan to be in place for the shared boundary for the approval. It's not.
That's not possible within the legislation.
Councillor Goldsack.
That may not be possible in the legislation, and I totally get that. But I think I heard say that under planning consent for the wood, may have been 30 years ago, that there were obligations that had to be maintained. Are we happy, Kevin, that they are, have been and will be?
Forestry maintenance of the planting is a different thing. That's to do with establishing the woodland as a woodland rather than the ongoing maintenance of side vegetation.
Can I just clarify? Yeah, you don't require planning permission to plant trees. You might require licences to create, as Kevin's just said, from the Forestry Commission and things like that. But as far as planning permission goes, planting trees is not a land use per se.
Any more debate? We've had a proposal, we've had a seconder, we've had some members indicate their support. Anybody else desperate to have away you go?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is obviously one of the only woodlands in East Cambridgeshire, so I'm fully in support there. I do agree with Councillor Huffer. I'd maybe slightly moderate it to say there's nothing to prevent large-scale maintenance going on. I think it's right that there is public oversight via this council if that were to happen, because obviously it's so important in terms of the area. But like we've heard, simple pruning is perfectly acceptable even under a TPO. And in addition, it's serving as a community asset, which I think is even more in weight. I would posit even that this is what tree protection orders actually exist to do. So I'm very happy to support the proposal.
I think we will go to a vote now. I don't think there's any point in just prolonging this. So let's go. Well, all those we're clear what the proposal is. We're clear it's been seconded and proposed. So will those in favour please raise their hands?
That's unanimous.
Will those who are opposed to it please raise their hands? No? It was unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. And you've got the result, and thank you for coming, and good luck. You can leave now. We're going to move on to something else. So we now move on to item number 7, and Kevin, your proposal, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is item number 7, which is the confirmation of tree preservation order E0425 for one lime tree at 97 Main Street, Little Downham. As you can see, the location of the tree within the wider landscape, and from the aerial view, it's quite a green area of land that it's located in. And this is the TPO map. The proposal is to confirm without modification the tree preservation order. There's some site photos. As members will remember, the accessibility, because of the other things, the photos were not necessarily the easiest thing to take because of So the main considerations are the amenity value of the tree, the opinion of the neighbour and their insurance company's representative who object to the confirmation of the TPO, the officer's opinion that there is a current lack of substantial evidence supporting the removal of this tree, the tree owner's desire to retain the tree, the possible cost implications if the tree is retained, the amenity value of the tree and the visual impact of its loss on the area. This is the score that was given to the tree after assessment through the tree evaluation method. It scored a 16, which was the definitely merits. Okay, so 2 objections to the serving of the TPO were received in writing from the neighbouring property owner and their insurance company's tree consultant. The tree owner wants to retain the tree, and their tree consultant has questioned the conclusions in the insurance company's report. The parish council have not commented regarding the TPO as part of the Section 211 notification or as part of the TPO consultation process. So the key objection points are that the tree has been directly linked to subsidence damage at 93 Main Street as part of the Section 211 notifications. Supporting evidence was provided. The local planning authority has failed to recognise the evidence provided as causal to the subsidence. The LPA have failed to demonstrate how the tree provides a reasonable degree of amenity and failed to provide evidence that amenity and expediency have been considered in a structured and consistent way. The only biodiversity observed in the is the use of the tree by a large group of crows who make a lot of noise and scare other birds away, reducing biodiversity. The tree creates a nuisance from falling leaves throughout the year, especially in the summer, overhangs the boundary, leaving a mess on the lawn, blocking the garage gutters and blocking sunlight from the garden. The TPO restricts the tree's removal, which is part of the proposed solution for the subsidence issues. So the officer's responses are that the implication of the tree is based on primarily on its proximity to the garage. There's been no trial pits have been dug close to the garage to check if roots have developed beyond the boundary wall. The pits dug close to the dwelling did not find any lime tree roots, and approval has been granted for the removal of the large high water demand poplar tree, which was linked to the subsidence. The lime trees are regarded as a moderate water demanding species. A tree evaluation method for preservation orders assessment, TEMPO, was resulted in a score of 16, demonstrating that the tree provides a degree of amenity, evidencing that amenity and expediency are being considered as part of the structured, consistent way. Lime trees have the potential to support over 110 species of insect. The high aphid amount is also a prey for other insects, birds, honeydew feeders, and the excellent summer blossom is good for the bees. The falling leaves is a maintenance issue, not regarded as justification for removal of a tree. If evidence directly linking the lime tree to the subsidence is provided, such as trial pit results with the lime tree roots discovered, or if proof that movement continues after the other trees identified for removal are removed, is provided, then removal of the lime tree would be approved. So the effects on the area. So the amenity is, again, it's a subjective term, open individual interpretation. Public amenity is described as a feature which benefits and enhances an area, contributing to the area's overall character for the public at large. In this case, the tree is mature, or semi-mature anyway, and is visible primarily from neighbouring gardens, but this could change once other trees are removed that will make it more visible. It's currently views from the high street. You can see the poplar, the large poplar that members will have noticed in the garden, but you can't see the lime tree because the poplar's in front of it. It's considered to benefit the area in relation to its visual contribution. biodiversity and character of the area and is considered of sufficient public amenity to warrant its long-term protection. So members are recommended to approve the confirmation of the tree preservation order for the following reasons: that the tree is a visible feature in good health, it offers a visual contribution to the amenity of local landscape in this part of Little Downham, and there is currently insufficient evidence to link it to the subsidence case in the officer's opinion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed, Kevin. I've got a little bit confused here. I've got as a speaker Brian Higginson, the agent, but I've got you down as an objector. Is this correct? Yes. It is. Okay, well then, would you like to speak now, please?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to deal with a few simple facts to start with. Kevin alluded to the tree owners having a report doing with their own surveyors, Argenta. And the quote here from Argenta says, in my opinion, it would be incorrect to retain T3 given the evidence we possess. So I think to a degree that must be... The house is subsiding, it's got cracking damage. It's not just the house, there's a garage next to it and the lime tree sits beyond the garage. We talk about the need to have lime roots found in a trial pit. If we think about the flank of the garage, a trial pit is this big. Okay, so we drill a trial pit, and if we find roots, be it lime or poplar or whatever, we then go, we can try and link it to a tree. This lime tree is quite close to the garage. It's so close that I think it's almost beyond reasonable doubt that we would find lime roots. So why should we have to dig a trial pit to go and find them in the first place? I think we have to be aware that, you know, one of your people that live in the borough has a subsidence problem. They want the solution quickly resolved, and we're trying to resolve it. If we're not careful, this just drags out the process and it takes longer and longer, so the suffering carries on. I think to a degree, you know, we must be aware that, you know, there's damage occurring. There's a little note here from the engineer who just said, from the subsidence engineer, the garage is badly damaged by subsidence as illustrated by level monitoring, along with the main house and the right house boundary wall between the two properties. So what we have is we have evidence that we have shrinkable soil, we have evidence of trees, we have evidence of seasonal movement which makes it linked to vegetation. The one thing we don't have is lime roots in a trial pit, in a pit this big. I think if this tree had been on the very periphery of distance from the tree to the garage, it would be, yeah, you'd go, yeah, we need more evidence, but it's so close. I think we've got to suggest that it's beyond reasonable doubt that the lime will be associated. It will be causal to the current claim. And I have to urge some caution. Obviously, if you put a TPO on the tree and we apply to remove it and you refuse, then, you know, the subsidence company, the insurer, is within his right to look for compensation for the claim, for further damage. So I think that's all I can say, really.
Thank you very much. Members' questions? Keith.
Thank you, Chair. Sir, who dug the trial pits by the garage?
There's been no trial pits by the garage. The trial pit is by the main body of the house.
So, how do you know that there is damage? I appreciate, you know, difference between criminal and civil offence, you know, beyond reasonable doubt, etc., etc. But here we're going to decide whether to hang a tree or not. So it would not be unreasonable that if you know evidence is going to be required, don't understand why evidence isn't obtained.
It has been obtained by the insurers as part of their site investigations. So this is just a drawing from the level monitoring report which has been provided, which shows movement in the garage and the house, and there's information that goes with this.
Sorry. No troll pits by the garage. Sorry, there's no troll pits by the garage. The troll pits by the house don't appear to show any lime tree roots, is what I understand. But if you're saying, well, the tree is close to the garage and it's damaging the garage, surely it would be reasonable to have some troll pits dug by the garage, and I don't understand why that hasn't been done, because with the best will in the world, I don't think that this expert has X-ray vision and can see them through solid land, and please help me understand why no troll pits were dug at the garage.
The insurance engineers decide where troll pits are going to be dug based upon their damage assessment to start with. So I can't answer that easily.
Councillor Vellacott.
Thank you, and thank you for coming. There is evidently substance. We've obviously been to the site today. That, I understand, is why the poplar tree is coming down. I don't think members here are experts in trees. So I would perhaps ask Councillor Horgan's question in a slightly different way. How do we know there is lime tree caused subsidence if we haven't checked?
I think it's never a simple answer. I think the proximity of the lime tree to the garage means that it's highly likely that there will be lime tree roots there, just by its sheer proximity. If it was more peripheral, if it was a good old distance away, then I think you'd be more questionable. But just by its close proximity, overwhelmingly, there will be lime tree roots there. It will be causal to that garage movement, to some degree. To what degree, I cannot answer.
Councillor Hoffer.
Thank you, Chair. I'm looking at this picture here, where where is the subsidence happening on the house? And because the proximity of the garage is here, I'm assuming that's the garage, is it? Or where is the garage in relation to the house? Is it behind the house, in front of the house, to the side of the house? And where is the subsidence? Oh, is this the garage here? Is that the garage there? Or is it a separate building? It appears to be a separate building. So if you look at this picture here, there's the garage, there's the poplar tree behind the garage, and the lime to the side of the poplar tree. So I don't know, I'm not a tree expert. I have to tell you I must have 12 lime trees in my garden, so I know lime trees very well. I must have a lime tree that's 150 feet tall, and it is 2-3 meters from my house, and I've never had subsidence issues, certainly not with a garage or anything else. So what I don't understand is why you're assuming that the lime tree is causing the problem when the garage is clearly in front of the house. We know that the poplar has caused subsidence in the house. To me, common sense, I'm not an engineer and I'm not a tree expert, would say that the damage to the garage has been caused by the poplar roots on its way into the house, not the lime tree.
I can answer that by suggesting that you must consider that it's never one piece of vegetation in isolation. Yes, the poplar would probably be the overwhelming cause of this vegetation, but it's almost certainly likely that the lime tree will have a causal element to it. It's an early mature lime tree. It's not the biggest tree. They're often the ones which have the highest water demand. You know, there are thousands of lime trees which do not cause subsidence. Most trees in this country do not cause it. But we have shrinkable soil, We have seasonal movement that's been picked up by level monitoring. We have a lime tree that is within influencing distance of the garage. These are facts that are evidence-based.
I accept that, but I am told by our trees officer that lime trees are not high water demand when you compare it to a poplar tree. I mean, I know that it's almost impossible to grow anything under a lime tree, and I get that, but again, we knew that when we moved in. You know, that lime tree hasn't suddenly sprouted up in the last 5 years. It's always been there, and the subsidence will have taken years to happen, and that is, in my opinion, for what it's worth, if the garage is behind the house, I fail to see how you can assume that it is the lime tree that's causing the issue when you haven't done boreholes. It doesn't matter what your insurance guy thought was relevant. We as a committee can only make a decision based on facts and evidence, not on opinion.
All I can answer that is that yes, lime tree is classified as a medium water demanding tree as opposed to poplar, which is high. Because it's medium, does not, for instant, suggest that it will never cause subsidence damage. It abstracts water out of the soil. Really, it's a shrinkable soil. The lime is in influencing distance. So these are known, accepted facts which cannot be ignored. The lime tree has an element of causal risk to it.
I would beg to differ. You're making assumptions. That's evidence, not that you haven't produced any evidence to contradict or to support that statement because you didn't do boreholes.
If I can just say, this is a matter of asking the gentleman a question and him answering it. It's very easy to slip into a two-way argument, isn't it? We will be getting a section very shortly where the officer will be making comments as a result of our discussions. So we have Councillor Corbett.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. The black poplar is going. The black poplar is in close proximity to the lime tree. I don't understand how you can be sure that the lime is going to cause damage when all that consumption of water by the black poplar is going to be terminated. Can you explain that, please?
It's on the balance of probabilities based on known data. So if we think about lime tree in known data, let me just find the table here somewhere. I've got so many pieces of paper. Okay, so the maximum distance recorded for lime causing damage is 20 metres away. Okay, in 50% of cases, the lime tree was within 6 metres of the damage. So these are known data sets which are used throughout the insurance industry to consider these claims. It's not about me, Brian Higginson, saying, oh, that tree is guilty. It's about looking at known facts, species, distance, putting them next to known data sets and drawing a conclusion based on the balance of probabilities. It can never be anything more than that.
Well, I do appreciate that, but the data sets aren't based on lime trees with black poplars as immediate neighbours, are they? Because it seems to me that once the black poplar's been removed, the whole consumption of water in the area is going to be changed dramatically. So personally, I can't really see why the poor old lime tree should be executed before we've found any evidence that it's guilty of anything.
Councillor Goldsack.
Brian, I think you mentioned earlier that we've got two sets of residents to consider here. The one that owns the trees and the one that's going through subsidence. Subsidence is a horrible issue to be going through. It's a worry. You're probably your biggest investment, your home and everything's going through it. That's why we pay insurance, and we have insurance to cover this. I note the insurer on this one is Kavir, a very large organisation. I put it to you that had Kavir sanctioned their engineer to do a couple more trial pits at their expense, you would be not here today because potentially you would have found the evidence that you're alluding is there and we would have no case to answer. But we don't have any evidence here, and as you've said, that's fact, that's fact, that's fact. I just don't see that we have the fact that this poor lime tree is guilty. So I would actually urge you on behalf of the resident that you're representing to go back to the insurance company and say, can we dig some more trial pits around the garage in particular? Because regardless of whether we vote yes or no for a TPO today, if that comes back, you are absolutely right. We have a choice to make then. We either contend the issue and we stand liable for any damages that come as a result of it in court, or we remove the lime tree. And I think you'll find we would remove the lime tree, but with evidence. So my recommendation to you, sir, is that we go back. My question to you is, do you think you could go back to the insurance company and ask for more investigative work?
I think at this stage, we can always go back and ask. I would say that the insurance company have been kept fully involved at all stages, and they've said at this stage we don't want to go back, but that may change. But all of this is always on the balance of probabilities. One of the key pieces of data really is level monitoring. Now, if they carry on level monitoring, and when the poplar's gone, if we don't see any sort of cessation of movement, if movement continues, it will be the lime tree, because there won't be anything else causing it. So there are other pieces of evidence apart from digging a borehole, which is this big, and seeing if we can find a route there.
Yes, Councillor Goldsack.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. I think I agree that there's a good probability that the lime tree could be part of the problem. But I also think that, to my record and to the documents that I read, that the area that we're talking about in question is clay, predominantly clay. And clay dries and it shrinks, and it wets and it grows, right? So that could well be just the cause. It could be environmental basis. We don't know. So again, the balance of probabilities are it's one or the other, right? What I'm trying to say here is I think there is a route here at the insurer's expense, which they don't like. I've been in the insurance industry long enough. They don't like spending their money, but I think at the insurance expense, a couple more trial pits, and the lime tree found guilty, it will be felled and applauded on its way down, I'm sure. But without that evidence, I fail to see how that can be taken forward as a viable reason for this being subsidence at the cause of the tree today.
I mean, that's a statement, not a question. It's hard for me to answer. All I would comment on that to a degree is, yeah, all I can do is go forward. I imagine they'll put in an application to fell because it's the way it'll rumble on, of which you'll then refuse. I imagine if we then get further evidence, then it will be for the insurance to consider, you know, how they handle that going forward.
I think there's something here, but there seems to be some of my colleagues seem to be referring to sort of court cases and things like that. The fact remains that if we make a mistake today, that tree can be felled in a week's time, in a year's time, in 10 years' time. It can't be recreated. And that's something which I'm sure most members will be considering. Now we move on to comments from the office. Oh, Lucius.
No, Councillor Horgan. Sorry.
Horgan.
Thank you, Chair. You may or may not know the answer to this, but it will help me later on in the discussion. What came first, the tree or the garage?
I don't know the answer to that because I've not been privy. I don't know the answer to that. Exactly. I don't know exact dates for either.
I wasn't looking at the exact dates. I just said which came first.
They could be similar. It could well be the tree was there first. It's hard to know. I don't know.
All will be revealed later.
Officer comments, please.
On the first one, the age of the tree, I was provided a photo this morning of the tree on site in 1993, which predates the property next door. Also should be noted that in the officer recommendations, it was, in the report, I did state that even if once the poplars are moved and there is continued movement, even without the digging for roots for the lime tree, if the movement continued after the poplar had been gone, it would be deemed as being the causation, and approval would be given for removal of it.
We're actually on a section at the moment which is the officers' comments to members. We've now moved, or unless there's somebody else wants to speak immediately, we've now moved to sort of councillors' questions to the officer. Councillor Goldsack.
Yeah, Kevin, the large draining poplar tree, when that's removed, is that removed roots and all, or is that just removed to stump level?
I'm not sure whether it'll be removed completely or just down to stump, but I would suspect that if it's removed to stump, it would be treated to prevent it regrowing.
But that does elongate the potential water water take on from the root ball for quite some period. It doesn't die straight away, does it?
The treating with chemicals to stop it regrowing would mean that it wouldn't grow. So then once it stops growing, it stops taking water.
So we're now on questions to the officer. Keith.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of questions, Kevin. In terms of cutting the tree down and treating it, is that our responsibility, the owner's responsibility? Whose responsibility is that?
For
the popular.
Yeah, it will be an agreement either between the tree owner and possibly the insurance company. It varies. Sometimes the insurance companies will offer and pay for the removal of a tree that's affecting one of their insured properties. Sometimes they require, so that's out of our control.
And just following up on that, and this is the reason why I asked the question, what came first, tree or garage? When I built an extension on my previous home, one of the questions I was asked is there a tree nearby? And there was, a silver birch. And silver birch is not one of the worst trees that you can build an extension next to, I'm pleased to say, but it was a clay soil. And therefore, instead of going down a metre, we had to dig down 1.6 metres to the foundations. And in fact, my builder actually disappeared below ground level. He went down 2 metres just to be on the safe side. So generally speaking, householders can protect against a close-by tree. Do we have any knowledge about the depth of the foundations for this garage, or the house for that matter? Particularly, as you said, the tree dates back to 1993 and the house is subsequent to that. So it's not an old London Victorian home that's got very shallow footings and what have you. So presumably it would have had appropriate foundations from that time, would it not?
I found records with building control that they recommended the house was built with engineered footings due to the proximity of trees, and that there had been trees on that site beforehand. The garage is are not subject to building control, so they're not constructed in the same way under the same regulations.
I think where everybody is. So we now move on to debate. Councillor Huffer.
Thank you, Chair. Limes are beautiful trees, but if they're not dropping the little helicopter things, they're dropping black sap onto your patio, they're dropping leaves, they are a bit of a nightmare to live with. I am surrounded by them, so I know them very well. But this lime has been there since 1993, and it has more right to be there than the house, frankly, in my opinion, and certainly the garage. I couldn't countenance, unless I had actual physical evidence that this lime tree was affecting the garage, any removal of it, however irritating it might be as a tree. So I am happy, subject to the Chair's approval, unless he wants to propose that we propose to agree with Kevin's recommendation. I'm happy to yield, Chair, if you would rather. I'm happy to propose that we approve the confirmation of this TPO until such evidence is produced to contradict it.
Councillor Huffer, I've made a note of your wish to propose it, and we will continue with the debate, but you are absolutely logged in as the proposer. Okay. Keith.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that last-minute piece of what I think might be vital information, that the plans for the building of the house required engineered footings. So that's foundations slightly better than your average of that time. And therefore, it's sad that they obviously have been breached by the Poplar, seemingly. But obviously it's a pretty big beast, the Poplar. And that, as we've heard, combined with other undergrowth in the area, ground movement, swelling, etc., has undoubtedly foiled the best attempts of man to actually protect the dwelling. We've heard also that the garage would have been built to a slightly lesser standard, but even so, if it was built that close to a tree, it would not be unreasonable to say, so why didn't you sort of protect? Because relatively simple things can be done to stop the ingress of roots damaging the foundations of even a garage without incredible expense. So again, as nobody else so far has seconded the proposal by Councillor Huffer, I would be happy to second the approval. Thank you.
I'll make a note of that as a seconder. Any other? Here we go. Yes, Councillor Lay.
John Trapp isn't here today, so I thought.
No, I think he's got a pink shirt on.
Look, whatever we do here tonight, or this afternoon, we're not taking away from the gentleman over there to be able to rectify whatever we put forward and whatever we vote on. It is in his ball court to go and prove that that tree was causing a problem. We are going to spare that tree, but on the grounds that we are giving him some sympathy, but the answer is in his hands. Once we approve this recommendation, it will be down to him to prove that we have made a mistake. And if we have made a mistake, we will rectify it. And that's the important thing. We are not saying that tree must remain forever. We are saying it is in his hands to make the decision on whether or not he's going to have some more pits dug and confirm whether or not that tree is responsible. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. That's very comprehensive and I think very well put. Thank you. Have we anyone else? So we've got no more debate, so there's no reason why we shouldn't go to a vote now. Will those in favour, we have the proposal is from Councillor Huffer, with Councillor Horgan seconding it. Any reason why we shouldn't agree with the officer's recommendations? And will those who are in favour of us agreeing with the officer please raise their hands?
That's unanimous, Chair.
Was that unanimous?
Yes.
Okay, so the tree preservation order has been approved. Thank you for coming. You're on.
Thank you, Chair. I'll draw members' attention to agenda item 8, which is planning performance for October 2025. In the usual fashion, I'll ask members to note the statistics that I have in front of them, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions. As a sort of an update from Councillor Horgan's question in the last committee, which was, if we look at page 154 on your agenda, where it talks about appeals. Councillor Horgan, you asked us to look at giving us something with dates and sort of statuses of the appeals. I think it's useful to draw your attention that these are only the appeals that we have received this month, so it's not all the ones that we have on our record. Now, we could consider a quarterly or 6-monthly report on appeals, which will be a separate report to this, if that's something that members would find useful. But in regards to updating this report, there's probably not a lot of benefit to that, because the ones that we have on here are those which we have freshly received, so they'll have a start date letter, and that's about it on them, just for a point of clarity. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions members have.
Yes. Councillor Lay.
Yes, I was just going to ask, we're coming to the end of this year. Could we have a report giving us just what we've got here on an annual basis, so we've got an overall view of what's happening within our operation? Thank you.
I would usually suggest that we bring that to a May committee, obviously because it'll be at the end of the financial year, but if members want it to be a calendar year, then clearly we can look to bring something in January.
Can we just decide whether I think it's a very reasonable request, but I personally would be in favour of ending where the calendar year ends on the 31st of December, but there's a suggestion we could use the civic year, but so I think it might be an idea to go to a vote and just say, will those in favour of having this report in a calendar year please raise their hands?
Sorry, through you, Chair. I'm quite happy if David would rather bring this to operational services part of the annual reports that come to op services. We could build it into that report rather than making it a separate report.
Will that have enough information on it to satisfy members?
It can have as much or as little information as this committee requests.
Usually when we go to operational services, we'll be bringing the service plan data and things like that. Those are probably different data than we've got here.
Whichever way you want to bring it to, David.
I'm comfortable bringing effectively a yearly updated report that we have here. It's just trying to work out for not just this year, but for going forwards, when members would like to see that. Now, a lot of the stuff on here does appear to be calendar year, so I'm comfortable doing it that way. It's just usual sort of custom and practice is normally financial year when we do these things, and I just want clarity of what members intend, that's all.
Well, I think we'll ask members the question. Are members in favour of a calendar year? Please raise their hands.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Will those in favour of the civic year please raise their hands?
Chair, on a point of order, the vote has to be for or against something.
Yes, it would be, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I don't know what I'm voting for
So
or against.
those who are against having the calendar year, please raise their hands.
Just fine.
Okay, and those who are abstaining, please raise their hands.
Well, sort of. I'm in favour of doing whatever.
So we have a request for it to be on a calendar year. Pardon?
Can I ask the chairman a different question?
Yes.
Good. David, looking at page 153, it's always very informative, and I suddenly realised I wasn't 100% sure what I was being informed of. The number of applications received, we can see it in a roughly downward projection, although there's spikes and troughs. That is of applications, which could be for one add-on extension or 500 houses, isn't it?
Absolutely right. So, with all the changes that we've had over the years with regards to getting rid of a free go, the changes around what's permitted development and what's not, there's been a trend, and that's very deliberate from central government, on sort of volume is dropping. What we are finding is at the moment, we're getting more bigger stuff which takes up more of our capacity. So actually fee income this year, as members will have seen from the most recent updates you've had on it, is actually very, very strong, and so is PPA income. But actual application numbers, and I think this is nationally, this isn't just an ECDC thing, it is on a bit of a downward trajectory, but that's because a number of things that historically were planning applications have been taken out of that sort of requirement.
Okay, well, at the risk of scratching a couple of uncomfortable itches elsewhere, what I think I would like to see is the number of house determinations, new property determinations against our plan numbers. And I can't see whether I can see that on this information.
You wouldn't get that here. So we have recently submitted to central government our HFR, which is how many completions we've had in that time. And you'll also be getting a paper very shortly in December showing our current 5-year housing land supply. So that sort of data will be contained in those papers rather than this one, because that's...
That'll be to full council, will it? Or to this council?
I'm not entirely sure where that's going to go yet, but that information will be released in December because we need to publish it on our website.
Okay, well, can I make a request at least that members of the planning committee are copied on that information?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Is there a question, or is that just a waving of a finger?
It will be a question, Chair, if you allow it.
Please.
Thank you.
Tell us about it.
I'm looking at the statistics here, so determinations. This is basically how long did we take to say yes or no, maybe, what have you. So I'll take the major column first. 4 determinations, 100% determined on time, well done. 90% within 13 weeks. Now, 13 weeks is the sort of statutory...
So that 90%, so what's in brackets underneath is our target. So that's the target that's been set to us.
So those are the targets.
So that's not, so that, what you've got there is effectively commentary underneath. So you've got 100%, which is what we've done, and what you're expecting, or what we are targeted on is 90%. Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong on that. She's nodding. Excellent. I'm not talking out of my proverbial. So that's our service plan target underneath that. I haven't got it to hand, but obviously we'll bring that to the next committee as to what our rolling performance is. But I bring that monthly to our own service team meetings, and I can tell you that our performance in every area is strong. The only one which was potentially a little bit under the service plan was majors, and that's purely due to the fact that we have such low numbers of majors. Even one out of time can cause quite a dent in that. But I will happily bring that, as I said, we'll bring that to the January committee for your perusal as a separate thing on there.
Thank you for that excellent and complete answer to sort of the question I sort of wasn't actually going to ask, but one of the things that, and again, Councillor Goldsack and I both work for the same computer company, and we had this phrase of cutting the tail off the dragon, which is how long do these things take sometimes to fix in terms of computers? And similarly here, how long does they take to actually come to a decision, to approve, not approve, etc. I hark back to a matter that I discussed with the chief executive of the hospital that I stayed in a few years ago, that I was supposed to be in this ward for no more than 48 hours before they decided what to do, and 7 days later I was still in there waiting for them to diagnose me. And discussed with him, and he said, oh, well, one of the problems is and you've brought it up to me, is that we don't actually measure. Yeah, we measure how many people do we get out through the door or whatever, or into a ward within the 48 hours, but we don't actually measure how long do we keep people in there who don't get diagnosed or exited through the door. So what we don't see is some information about, you know, those ones which don't meet the target. So, you know, some of these could go on for weeks and weeks and weeks. Now, I appreciate, and again, probably sort of part of the answer could be that these targets include, if we agree with the applicant, a time extension. We therefore I'm assuming we are still within the 8 weeks, even though it's actually technically beyond the 8 weeks. I see the nodding, so I'm assuming that that understanding is correct. But equally, if it drags on and 3 months later, it should have been decided in 8 weeks or maybe 12 weeks with a 4-week extension, what have you. Is there any data that you capture that you could share with us about those ones which really drag on and how long the longest ones are? I'm not doing it to embarrass anybody, but it's a question I've been asked and I want to know where I can get the data to answer it.
The simple answer is yes, we can pretty much run data on most things. And in answer to your question, yes. So if something has an extension of time which has been agreed, then that will come within those percentages. What we can say is we did a bit of number crunching, must have been about 3 or 4 months ago now, and we are massively down on the amount of extensions of time that we're doing. So historically, you'll probably remember, if it didn't have an extension of time on it, that was pretty much a unicorn. It was a rarity. Now, because of the adoption of the negotiation protocol and our ability to get rid of stuff which is never going to go anywhere, rather than ending in endless cycles, where we're limiting people to one extension of time through an application lifetime, I think it will be clear that our average has probably dropped quite spectacularly. I'll have a look and see what stats we can run, because I'll just need to check what we've got. With regards to the oldest things on the system, yes, we could probably run a reporting and find out what the oldest ones on there are. We have been doing a long piece of work over the past sort of year, 18 months, certainly since I've been here, of clearing off most of those old ones, or trying to get them through. Members will remember, for example, we managed finally to get through and out the permission for Littleport Cemetery, which was mildly embarrassing because I think most of us probably have children that almost would have been born and finished school by the time that one went through the system. But it's just an example of those things that unfortunately tend to sit around. We are continually going through the old stuff, because the whole point of the negotiation protocol is to make sure that we didn't have those applications that were sitting around, costing the council a lot of money, because if you're going round and round in circles, I'll use an example of a householder, we've had 200 quid of a fee. That way, madness lies for all parties, because what people want is they want a decision. They either want to go away and appeal it, or they want to go away and build it. So in answer to your question, sorry, I've gone around a bit in circles there, but we'll have a look at that, and we'll have a look at what we can give you that will be of benefit, if that makes sense. And if members aren't happy with that, clearly we'll then go away and rethink that.
Thank you for your comprehensive reply. I'd just like to say thank you very much for coming. We've had a large amount of substitutes, and it's very nice to see you. I deliberately allow people to talk longer than perhaps they should, but I do think that in people's lives and in their investments, the decisions we make are important, and therefore if we spend a little bit of extra time going down into the details, at least people can leave here, and even if they didn't get the decision they wanted, they're able to say, well, I had a fair crack and they debated it properly. So thank you, members, for doing it. Please excuse my joke, Councillor, for making a comparison to an absent member. And thank you very much for coming. Have a lovely Christmas, and see you in the new year. Thank you. This meeting is now closed.
Well done, Chair.